Part 1. Topic: Neighbors. How well do you know the people who live next door to you? I know them quite well because we've lived beside each other for a couple of years now. The people who live to the right of me, well, it's a family with young kids, and on the other side there's a young couple, I guess they're in their 30s, but no kids. How often do you see them? Why? Well, that depends. Sometimes I see them almost every day when I'm at home, but I travel a lot for work, so sometimes I'm away for 3 or 4 days at a time, so I don't see them at all. I suppose I see them more at the weekends than at any other time. What kinds of problems do people sometimes have with their neighbors? I suppose the most common problems would be noisy neighbors, you know, maybe playing loud music all the time or doing something else that's annoying. Maybe if they have a dog which barks all the time, that could cause a problem for the other neighbors, or if you have neighbors whose kids keep kicking their football into your garden or something like that, or parking in your parking space, for example. How do you think neighbors can help each other? I think it depends if they are good neighbors or not. But in general, they could help when you have a problem. For example, if you lock yourself out of your home, or if you need someone to be there to accept a package delivered when you're out, or even watch your kids for a couple of hours. Part 2. Describe a time when you were asked to give your opinion in a questionnaire or survey. What was the questionnaire or survey about? Why were you asked to give your opinions? What opinions did you give? How did you feel about the questionnaire or survey and giving your opinions? IELTS cue card. Describe a time when someone asked for your opinion. Cue card model answer. Generally, I hate doing surveys, but I did one a couple of months ago. It was about the use of internet services. I was asked to participate in the survey because I had bought a new internet package for my apartment and was a new customer of the company. Well, that was the reason that they gave me anyway. They did the survey by internet, like live chat, so at least they didn't stop me in the street or come knocking on my door and disturb me. That was the main reason I agreed to do it, because it just happened to be convenient. The girl from the internet company asked me some questions about how I used the internet, for pleasure, work, etc., and also when I used it the most, you know, during the day, at night, or the weekends. She also wanted to know how happy or satisfied I was with the sales and installation service of the company. So I guess I spent about 15 minutes or so explaining to the girl about how and when I used the internet, why I had chosen that particular company and that specific internet package and all that. I also mentioned that I had been impressed by the quick installation of the equipment and that I was very happy overall with their service. As I said before, I don't like doing surveys or questionnaires in general, so I usually avoid them. But because this time I could do it while sitting at home and I could also choose when to do it, it wasn't a problem, and they didn't try to sell me anything like some of these survey companies do. So, all in all, it wasn't so bad and it didn't take up much time, so I'd probably do it again if they ask me in the future. Follow-up question: can you recall a time when someone asked for your opinion and you didn't want to give it? Yes, I can think of a time when my boss asked for my opinion on a project she was working on, and I didn't want to give it because I knew she wouldn't like what I had to say. I kept my opinion to myself and just told her that I thought it was a great idea. Part 3. Discussion topics: questionnaires, surveys, opinions. What types of organizations are interested in finding out people's opinions? Well, I think lots of organizations do surveys to find out what people think about different things, you know, market research. Some groups ask you your opinion about the environment or local government services and, of course, politics, but probably the most common is the large manufacturing companies who want to learn what people think about their products or services. Almost every weekend you can see them in supermarkets and shopping malls armed with their questionnaires ready to ask people lots of questions. Is a questionnaire or survey a good way to find out about people's opinions? Well, it's one way of doing it, and I think a questionnaire or survey is a good idea because companies should know or be aware of what customers or potential customers think or how they feel about something. It's an essential part of their market research. I think the problem for many people is the way they go about it. They always stop you and try to ask you all these questions when you're busy doing something else or when you're out with your family at the weekend. Maybe they should try to find less intrusive ways of finding out what people think. There are many surveys on the internet now, especially through the Facebook page of a company, and I think these are more popular for many people than being stopped outside a store or on the street and asked if they would like to answer a few questions. Can you describe a time when someone asked for your opinion but you didn't give it to them? Why? I remember a time when my friend asked for my opinion on her boyfriend. I could tell she was struggling with whether or not to stay with him, and I didn't want to say anything that would sway her one way or the other. I told her that I thought she should do what she felt was best for her and that I would support her no matter what decision she made. What reasons might people have for not wanting to give their opinions? Model answer. I think the most common reasons would be that people just aren't interested, or they are busy, or they just can't be bothered at the time when they are asked. Let's face it, when you're out shopping or just walking along the street, the last thing on your mind normally is answering some questions about a product or service. I also think that maybe a lot of people think that there is an ulterior motive for the survey, or that they will be persuaded to buy something. Should schools ask students for their opinions on lessons? Well, it would certainly be interesting, wouldn't it? I mean, asking all the students' opinions, you'd be sure to get some very interesting answers. Yes, I think it is a good idea, because in any other aspect of life, organizations are interested in what the customer or end user thinks and feels about their product or service, and in the case of schools, it's the students who are consuming the service provided, but nobody seems interested in finding out what they actually think of it. Would there be any advantages if the university administration asked students to give their opinions? I think the main advantage could be that high-level administration officials or the education departments could get a better insight into what students think about the education they receive, what they expect, and just how well received or not the supposedly carefully designed education curriculum is by the very people who use it. I mean, it's common sense that students won't enjoy something if they don't find it interesting, and if they don't think it's interesting, then there's little chance of them actually learning it, or learning it well. I think that finding out more about how students think could help authorities improve how they deliver education services. I mean, it's not as if they have to change everything, but I'm sure they could certainly make some improvements based on students' reactions. What are some possible disadvantages of asking students for their opinions? Model answer. Well, I'm sure that some students would just say they don't like things. Or they do like things and wouldn't be able to quantify or justify their answers. And if it's the education authorities who ask the questions, they may well get some answers from the students that they don't like, but then that's all part of the process. It's what they do with that information that's important, how they filter it, and if they act upon it. As I said, just because they are only students doesn't mean that their opinions shouldn't be sought. After all, it could only make things better if their answers were taken into account when planning future education changes or curricula.